everybody, it's me, Creed. Today what I'm working on is selling my art at CaperCon. So welcome to my CaperCon 2016 video. First, I'll apologize for my non-illustrated self appearing here. You're not going to see much of that guy from now on. Actually, that's the first time I've appeared on video on this channel. I think if I can limit the screen time for this mug, I see success in my future. But let's get to it here. I'm from the town of Glace Bay, and I've been taking art seriously for almost 35 years now. I was about 10 when I decided to be an artist, and I've taken it seriously ever since then. But I don't live in an area where there was any opportunity to turn that into anything, especially not early on. So I never have actually been a full-time professional artist, and I actually never have really sold any of my art that I didn't make for a customer. Like anything I make myself, I've just kept. So this con, which is local, started last year, and that's when I heard about it, just afterwards. And I've been working hard for a year now to make as much art as I can, so I would have my pick of what I want to take to CaperCon. So I went to the CircWorks YouTube boot camp for con-going artists. It's a long name, but Scott Circlin has a series called Pro vs. Con, and that is my main source of information. So I used some of the things on that, and I left some of the things off because it's just my first con and I wanted to run this as a test. I had prints of roughly 75 pieces, and most of those were super small prints, and it's just because with my Cartoon Villain series, which is most of my prints, if you're a fan, you're gonna want a lot of the characters. So I wanted to make them as cheap and collectible as possible. So to get ready for the con, I got some prints made, and I got stuff from a few different places. The main place I would recommend is Vistaprint. That's where I got my large print stuff, and that was just an outstanding job, and I'll use those guys again, definitely. And the other main source I would recommend is clearbags.ca. They are excellent. They went above and beyond. I've only ordered, I think, 3 orders from them altogether, and 2 times they have gone above and beyond for me so far. So I am a lifelong customer. I can't recommend them more. When I did my first order, I ordered 4x6 bags to go with my 4x6 boards and 4x6 prints, and they actually called me up and they said, well, with the board, you're going to need some extra leeway, so we have these ones that are a little bit bigger around both edges, and that's what people use for 4x6 prints, which I had no idea about. So they saved me right there, and I said, yes, switch them over to the other size. That was fantastic. I was impressed with that. And then the week before CaperCon, I had an order of large 11x17 boards and bags coming, and mistakes happen. So the boards came cut to the wrong size, and it's weird. You could really tell it was a mistake because they were cut to a strange size that they don't even sell. So I contacted them. They were super nice about it. They were apologetic, but more importantly, and I don't judge a company on if they make mistakes or not, because humans make mistakes. I don't hold that against anybody. But with a company, especially something like this, that could have ruined my whole con if I couldn't get those boards. And they immediately fixed the problem. They called me back. They said, first of all, keep those other ones, and they couriered the other ones out to me in time for the show. That's amazing. That's above and beyond. That probably wiped out their profit from my order. But anytime I ever need any products like that, anything they sell, they are my first stop. I won't go. I won't even go to anybody else. That's fantastic customer service, and I'm super impressed with the company, and I can't recommend them more. So that was one of the super positive things that came out of this. Now, the con itself, the main reason I went to CaperCon was because it's local. So I can just drive there in the morning, stay all day, and just drive home. Super convenient. But I knew going into this, see, most of my art is based on cartoons from the 80s and 90s. At least all the stuff I took for the show. And this con seems a lot heavier on anime, which I have no interest in, and they have no interest in my stuff. So fair is fair. And the other big group was costumer people who don't care about 80s cartoons or 90s cartoons. So I'd say roughly 5% of the con were super interested in my stuff because they were cartoon fans. But so many people there just were not didn't even look at my stuff. Glance over, see that they don't know who these people are, and just keep going. So, and I knew going in, this was not going to be 100% my con, but I've never done a con before, and I've never sold at a con before, so I needed the experience. And it was a positive experience. I don't mean to sound negative about this. I knew going in that it wasn't exactly the right fit for me, but I figured I would do pretty well. And actually I made table, and I covered half of my inventory, and I knew going in that my inventory wasn't just for one show. So as far as I'm concerned, that was a big success. Plus I met a couple of great local artists who were in tables nearby, and that was just fantastic. There was a really cool artist sitting right next to me. His name's Jeff Wilson. I'm going to put his link for his website in the description. He was doing $5 sketches, which is super cheap, and they were super high quality. I was impressed by all of them. But I asked him to do a really gory, over-the-top, probably even too much for what that con was, kind of art for me. I wanted to get a really rotten zombie of myself, and here, I'll post it here. It came out excellent. I'm super impressed with it. It's almost exactly the opposite of my style, but I'm not the kind of person who can only appreciate one style or their own style. I love lots of things, and this is amazing art. It's made with a zillion little lines, which I use no little lines in my art, but this is great. I love it. If I was shambling the earth somewhere, especially months after the zombie apocalypse, I would probably look exactly like this. So that's fantastic. Plus, we did what worked out to an art trade where he got some of my art and I got some of his, and what I got was an excellent Reaper. Just excellent. I love this thing. It's fantastic. So I met some new artists, which is always fantastic. I don't have enough friends who are artists. Most of my friends do lots of other things. I have musician friends. I have lots of different kinds, but most of them aren't super into art. But like I said, I did have enough sales. I made table and half inventory, so I mean, that was great. And I did have a great time. I didn't really leave my table. That's where I kind of understood the people that weren't interested in my stuff, because I wasn't super interested in everything else that was there. And that's not a negative. It's just, like I said, it wasn't completely my con, but I wanted to try it out. And I think it was a great training for a bigger con. And I am actually looking at some big shows. I would love to get there's RetroCon in the States, but I don't know about going into Thunderdome, because I am a Canadian. We live in a happy place where not a lot of shooting. You get upset with somebody in Canada, you write them an angry letter, and then they apologize because they're Canadian too. And that's just how it works. So I am a little wary of going to the States, but I am thinking about it, because I think RetroCon would be exactly what I'd be looking for my art, to sell my art. but I had a really good table set up. I searched for stands for some of my stuff because you don't want just a flat table. That's one of the main things. And I couldn't find any, and actually what I come up with is I used some of the extra backer boards I had, and I made my own stands, and they came out better than any ones I found, and they were way cheaper and easier. I'm going to put a picture here. Feel free to make your own. I mean, these worked out great for me. My two biggest selling pieces were Beetlejuice and Cyril Smear. Everybody loved Beetlejuice and Cyril Smear. And I had my happiest sales were I sold one of my original zombie pieces. I was only selling 4 original pieces of my original monster art. I didn't want to mix the table up too much, so it was 99% cartoon villains. But I did sell one piece of my original zombie, and I sold 2 invaders from Oculon, which I'll show here. And I really love that piece. It's sort of original and sort of based on the Madball. But it is one of my all-time favorite pieces I've done, so I'm super happy that I sold 2 of those. I was super impressed to see my friends who live locally. Almost all of them came by. Anybody who could be there came by to support me, and that's amazing. And then on Facebook, the people that aren't local, even some of the boys from YouTube, you know who you are. I really super appreciate just even a like and a comment. Meant the world to me at the time. It was really super supporting for keep my gumption up to go back for the other 2 days. Actually, I don't want to get into this a ton, but I'm a super friendly person, and nobody would ever know I had any kind of a social issue. But when I'm not around people, that's sort of my happier time. Socializing drains my batteries at 2 or 3 times the speed. So by the time I had 3 straight days of crowds, that's why I didn't do this video sooner. I didn't want it to sound super negative, but I really had it was like a socializing hangover. I talked to too many people, and I said the same thing over and over, and I was really completely drained for a few days after that. And that's not really a bad thing. I expected that. Socializing burns me out if I do it too much. So that's why I wanted to wait until I felt a little better, because I didn't want to sound super down or tired, or it just would have sounded like I had a negative experience, and I didn't. It's just the burnout I had was kind of harsh. I was very glad to be back to a room where it was just me in it. That was a joy I had after the con, that's for sure. But what was really great are the people that did come by that were cartoon fans, and there weren't many. But I love talking about shows. My awesome co-pilot Jax, an awesome friend of mine, came from almost the other side of the province just to come and help me, and that meant the world. I couldn't have done it without support, without somebody there to hang with. So my friend Jax, you're the best, Jax. You rule, you really do. But yeah, to get all that support was just fantastic, and then to talk cartoons with people. Like I said, there was a bit of a debate: is Beetlejuice a bad guy? Was a common topic, and my friend Jax, who I believe I convinced her a little bit by now, but she was of the opinion that Beetlejuice is not a villain. What do you mean Beetlejuice is a villain? And we're talking cartoon Beetlejuice. The show doesn't really have a villain, but the way I look at it and the way I classify Beetlejuice as a villain is I put him, and I was telling people this, I put him in the group with Bugs Bunny, Chilly Willy, Ned Snoot, My Pet Monster. All of those characters, they're not villains, but if you run into them, any character who runs into them, their life is completely destroyed. You try being a construction worker who's trying to put something up where Bugs Bunny lives. You will rue the day. You try to be a guy who owns a fish store and Chilly Willy gets into your life. You will rue that day. So it's kind of an agent of chaos kind of a villain is the way I look at it. Beetlejuice would be on some crazy mission And if you ran into him, your life would be utterly destroyed, and he would just move on and finish his little journey he's on. And he wouldn't even notice, probably. So to me, that's a villain. That's why he deserves a villain spot. He's an agent of chaos. He will destroy your life. That's just my thoughts on that. That was a common topic. But I did have a great time. I'll show you some video I did of my table. Here we go. Now I just laid out all my small prints. I had a few, anything that was a little different. I had its own category on its own little stand, and then my large prints around it. I was a bit surprised at the size of the table. It was not exactly what it said in the paperwork, but I squeezed everything in. That's why it looks a little cramped. This was actually set up for a slightly bigger table, which wasn't there. But everybody was really friendly, and I will definitely be doing another con. I'm just not sure where or when yet. I'm pretty sure it will be something I'm going to travel to. But that was my first experience selling my art, and it feels really nice to know that my art is out there now. Some people have my art. I've never had that before. That's cool. And since I work digitally, prints are the only way you're ever going to get my art. I wouldn't even call my pencils the original, because okay, that's pencil on paper, but a lot of the time I'll draw something in pieces and then just put it together in Photoshop. Or like, my pencils are not a finished thing, they're just a part of the framework, so I wouldn't even call them finished art. The finished art is the print. And people say in traditional art you have a copy that you can sell and then prints you can make. And they say, well, there's no original in digital. No, that's old, backward thinking. If you apply the old process, no, I don't have an original. But this isn't the old process. My process now, it starts with pencil on paper, and then all the rest of it's done in Photoshop. And the final step for making the art an actual thing is printing it. So if the final step is printing, then every print is an original. It's the original that I created in my mind in the first place, and that's the end result. I didn't try to make art that was its own thing and then make copies of that and sell it. The copies are what I wanted to make, so it is the original art as far as I'm concerned. I wouldn't try to charge somebody and say, well, this is all original art, but these prints are the originals. But I have seen on some other videos that they said the hard thing about a convention is seeing people that aren't interested in your art or don't like your art or won't even look at your art and just walk by. That is a kick in the guts. I will not lie about that, because my art is a piece of my soul. I mean, every one of these things, if I have 75 different pieces on the table, that's minimum 75 days all day of my life that I spent making these. Some take 2 or 3 days. So yeah, when somebody just kind of looks at the table and keeps walking, and that's hard on the guts. I think that's a lot of the mental wear and tear that I had at the end was just from a constant state of rejection is sort of what it is. Not directly, but in a way. And I've seen other artists mention that on videos they did about convention going. And that's so true. It's a kind of thing where you have to accept that, or else don't be doing a show. Don't do cons. I didn't have so much problem with it because the people that did stop and the people that did talk about cartoons made up for it. There was a guy on the first day who rhymed off the whole spiel from The Midnight Bomber Who Bombs at Midnight from The Tick. And that made me happy. I'm like, there's a fan right there. And that's what my stuff is for, because I'm a fan. I'm not doing cartoon fan art to jump on some kind of bandwagon. If I want to do a bandwagon, I'd only draw Harley Quinn and Deadpool. And Deadpool as Harley Quinn, and Harley Quinn as Deadpool, and Harley Pool and Dead Queen is all I would draw. It's not a bandwagon when you draw somebody from an obscure cartoon that only somebody your age would know what it is. But I love what I do. I don't do fan art to get exposure. I don't do fan art for a lot of the reasons that people list why to do fan art. I do fan art because I love it. I love it. I was just the right age in the 80s, especially 80s. I do 80s and 90s and some other various other cool things, but the core of my art is 80s cartoons. And I do that because I was exactly the right age for those cartoons. The age of Saturday morning, where it's all about toys and cereal and cartoons. And that's when my brain was being put together. So my brain is made out of toys and cereal and cartoons. And it's these cartoons. So I do it because I love it. And I did have one customer that it was hard to actually just let it go and let the sale go. Because they bought a Skeletor and they said, I'm buying this because he's so crappy. I like him ironically. Now, the person was not from my generation at all. I don't know anybody who thinks liking anything ironically is cool. She apparently thought it was cool. I did get $5. I appreciated that $5. But, yeah, you don't put down the art that you're buying that the person that made it loves. I really had to grit my teeth and let that go, because you're insulting the thing that I took enough time and effort to draw. So obviously I love it. It was just interesting. But I mean, this person was really young, I guess. I don't know. They were probably 20, so half my age. And it was actually just cool that anybody that age was buying anything, because most of my customers were from my generation that I saw. So I'm starting to ramble a little here. That was my first convention. I think my table looked pretty great. I have been doing lately, I've been doing some plywood art, basically yard art for decoration for Halloween. That's another thing I do. I'm getting more and more into it, and I'm actually getting better and better at it. I never was a real world painter, but I know where I want everything, so that's all I do. So I brought my Kang and Kodos. It didn't sell, but it's always a good tip that I've seen on lots of things to bring one big item that's more expensive than the rest of your stuff to make the rest of your stuff seem more reasonable. Which may or may not have worked. It probably would have worked better if I had more traffic. It was hard to gauge, but it did catch people's eye anyway, so that helped. But I found by the third day that, well, A, the traffic really died off, but B, my friend Jax had to go, and I found she was a softening influence. The crowd was more likely to come over to the table when it was her and me instead of just me. And part of that's my look, which I'm not going to change. I could dress like a harmless guy, but that's not my comfort zone. People have to realize it. You don't have to be what you look like. I just like black and skulls and stuff, and no, I'm not a biker. No, I'm not trying to be a tough guy. I love the stuff I wear. I love it. And I'm not comfortable without it, to tell you the truth. So I think that might have scared a few people away, because I was talking to one guy, and he was a customer on the first day, and I was talking to him on the third day when things were kind of slow. And he was actually surprised. Once I started talking to him a little bit more, he was really surprised that I wasn't I don't know, I guess he thought I was some kind of a monster. He was surprised I wasn't a biker, and surprised that I was so friendly, actually. But he was surprised that I was not what I looked like. So that tells me that there must have been other people there who were maybe intimidated by my look. Usually I like that. It acts as a social filter, keeps the squares away from me. But it worked against me a little. I think it worked against me a little bit at this con, but I still wouldn't change it, because I'm not gonna wear a checkered vest and a big smile and try to look like a square. I'm not. I'm a metalhead. And I only had one person ask me about Square. They were like, oh, do you have Square? I'll be like, sorry, I do not own a telephone. And that's one of the joys of my life. I also wouldn't change that unless I really needed to. If I started going to a lot of shows and I get a lot of requests like that, I might get a phone just for the show. But I don't like using a phone. I've done years of tech support, and after that I'd rather not use that whole telephone system if at all possible. So I don't own a phone. So there are a few things about me personally that in small ways worked against me a little bit, but it's not worth it for me to try to change those because that's what I'm comfortable with and that's how I want to be. So you have to accept it. You know, if I turned off a few customers, I'm sorry, but you should have saw by the cartoon stuff on my table. I can't imagine somebody unfriendly having a pile of cartoon stuff on their table. Cartoon fans are some of the best, friendliest, coolest people. So I think you should be able to see just by what's at my table that I should be pretty approachable. But maybe I'm giving people too much credit, I don't know. So there was actually quite a bit of wear and tear on my nervous system from the con, but I expected that, and that's not a complaint, and I'd get that no matter what con I went to. But I was happy to do it, and I had a lot of fun. But I was happy when it was over, and I could sleep for a few days. Like I said, I will be doing another con, I just don't know when. But this has showed me that this will work. And if I ever do plan to do another con, I'll post it here and there'll be a video for it. Now, let me see if there's anything else I want to cover here. Okay, so all my prints were in bags with a board. Made them very professional. Everybody said, wow, these are really nice. What format are these? I told them the small ones are just photo prints, but it's on heavy duty board and in a bag. And actually, what I did is I bought a stamp. I ordered a stamp from Vistaprint, and it just has Creed Stonegate and InfiniteCoolness.com on it. And I stamped the back of every board. So anybody bought anything, they had a clear and legible website address and my name on the product. Oh, that's another thing. I have never in the history of my channel mentioned my website because it was like those bones from Pitch Black. From a distance, it looks like a forest. When you get up, they're just giant bleached bones lying in the desert. That's what my site has become over the years. It was actually a pretty huge site back in its day and very busy. And it actually made me some good income and lots of friends actually at the time. But over time, and I moved and I had other jobs and things that drew me away from it. And so for a long time, it was just there. And all the links were dead. And I do plan to revive InfiniteCoolness.com to its former glory at some point. But that's just a plan. But as of now, I do have the front page all fixed and brand new. And it points to all my social media, my Facebook page. InfiniteCoolness.com on Facebook is my Facebook page. I mostly post just my art there because those are the only links that have any visibility because of how Facebook works. Also, I used to use that as an entertainment feed, little bits of news, memes, anything cool that I saw, but none of that gets seen anymore on the fan page. So you're more than welcome to follow Creed Stonegate on Facebook. I really only friend actual friends, and lately a lot of cool artists that I know or follow, but I'm not using it as a public page. But you can follow me, and I do post a lot of cool stuff. So if you follow me, you'll see it. You'll see all that. So make sure to check out my webpage if you want to find out anything that leads to my DeviantArt, that leads to my YouTube, that leads to my Facebook. And I will have an online store I'm working on, and that should go up soon. So yeah, InfiniteCoolness.com, that's me. I am Creed from InfiniteCoolness.com. And almost half the population spells that wrong. I'm not saying you will, but it's all I's. There's no A's at all. Just FYI. So that was my CaperCon experience. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I do have a lot more videos coming now that I don't have the con to worry about. The only giant thing on my schedule right now, I have 2 more giant things this year. Halloween, of course, which I am working on. I will not have 31 pieces in 31 days, which I was hoping to do. The con kind of threw that for a loop. But I will have some Halloween content over the course of October. As much as I can make, I'm just going to be happy with what I can do. I'm hoping next year I will have a full plan and enact the whole plan. But this year, I don't know how many it's going to end up being, but I am going to do everything I can do for Halloween. And then the other big thing, and that's going to disrupt my art, and I know it will, is I'm going to get a Nintendo Mini, and I'm going to just live there for a while. Good old Nintendo. I have such a video game addiction, which I found out doesn't really apply to new stuff. But old stuff like that, oh man, I'm gonna become transparent in this world, but I'll be fully visible in the world of Nintendo. So that's what I'm hoping to do is get my cartoon villains. I have 8 more to draw to get to 100. So I will finish that this year. But other than that, it's going to be pretty much Nintendo until next year. Okay, will I ever stop rambling? Yes, I will. I just want to thank you guys for having any interest at all in my channel. I want to thank everybody who has supported me, even with comments, with anything. Shout out especially to Scott Circland, who was my big inspiration for even going to a con. And until my next video, all of you guys out there, take her easy. All right, guys.